Yes, we decided to give the sponsors a little bit more for their money. There you go. It's Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans. Name of the program, Tri-City Sports Now, where we own the Tri-Cities on 1420 WEMB Sports Radio. I'm going to talk to Asian House. I'm going to talk to Caleb Calhoun. It's sponsored by Asian House. It's called Asian House Vols Talk with Caleb Calhoun of allfortennessee.com. So we're going to have that here at the bottom of the hour. And I had originally planned on talking to you about the ETSU quarterback situation, which came up. I guess it's what everybody is talking about who follows ETSU football, because, let's face it, that's going to determine whether or not the Buccaneers sink or swim this year. They do well, they'll have a good, Cade Weldon or Chance Thrasher or whoever. I'm trying to verify that Tariq Sandusky is no longer on the team. There is a report that is the case. There was a lot that was sort of praised of him when he came in, Sandusky, but and I believe, was not he the backup quarterback and not Logan Marchie for the playoff game? I think he was. But there is some talk that he's not on the program, and I asked if that was the case to one of the SIDs, and they said, "Oh, we got to verify that," and I still haven't heard back from him. So, if you can't make it as a journalist, go into PR, that sort of thing. All right, but here we go. But the one thing that I wanted to begin talking about is not so much ETSU quarterbacks. I said that can wait. What I wanted to talk about was the passing of Ernie Bowman. And, in some ways, I guess we could discuss, I could do the same old Marky Billson and say, boy, it's write-ups that I see, they're missing this that Ernie Bowman did, they're missing that, they don't know this. If you're not aware, Ernie Bowman was a Major League Baseball player from this area, played about 50 to 60 years ago. His last year would have been 50 years ago in the minor leagues for Louisville in AAA. Before he was a baseball player, or probably while he was a baseball player, he was a very, very good basketball player. So good that he basically is one of the main people that helped ETSC, East Tennessee State College, go from the NAIA to the NCAAs. Now, he was not there when that happened, but it was his basketball exploits. For instance, ETSU making the NAIA finals in 1954. I say finals, not final, but the tournament. Played Arizona State, I believe, that year, to show you what era and the direction that some programs take and some don't. And why I often say, we've got to get more cosmopolitan around here. I mean, here, look, Arizona State, meet them, how many years ago in the NAIA tournament. Now where's Arizona State and where's ETSU? Oh, ETSU, though, has made its strides, though. And he played basketball at Science Hill, went to ETSC, and really established the program to where it could apply for NCAA membership. Ohio Valley Conference, originally turned down and then accepted for 1957. But by that time, Bowman was in the Giants system. Dale Alexander, there's a name from the past, 1932 American League batting champion. Okay. Short career, injuries in the training equipment of the day. Actually, nearly lost his leg, but Alexander would become a scout for the Giants, and he would also coach the baseball team at Tusculum for a while, among other things. But Dale Alexander, I believe, signed Ernie Bowman to the Giants. And he became a utility infielder for 3 years. ETSU basketball player, ETSC basketball player. Played for the San Francisco Giants. And I got to know Ernie Bowman a little bit, writing about him. You know that I have a weakness for old ball players. I love to hear the stories. I love baseball history. And a guy who played on the 62 Giants, National League champs, very good team. Obviously, they were to win the pennant in an era where you didn't have the pennant playoffs. You had, you finished first and you went to the World Series. There you go. And I really like that formula, to tell you the truth. Regardless. What we had here is Bowman. Bowman was never a great player. I think he hit 190 lifetime with one home run. That home run came in 1962 in the Polo Grounds against the Mets. The Giants had returned to their home that many think they never should have abandoned. And Bowman off of Al Jackson, in a game where two pitchers pitched 10-inning complete games, Juan Martial and Al Jackson. It was Bowman's home run in the Polo Grounds, and I'm sure it was hit to one of the, spots down the line and not the straightaway center. I mean, that sort of thing. But it helped the Giants. It was the first run that they scored. Game 1 extra innings. Giants got a run top of the 10th inning, and they beat on August 23rd, 1962, the Mets. Returned to the Polo Grounds. Bowman was with the Giants. That wasn't the first time the Giants had returned to the Polo Grounds. Giants returned to the Polo Grounds. I looked this up, beginning of June 62. Back then, you would play every team, I believe it was 3 times a year. And it was 3 times a year, I believe 18 games a year in 62. Opponents. So you'd have 3-game series if it worked that way, I guess. And in June of 62, he didn't play the first game the Giants played against the Mets in the Polo Grounds, but he played the second. But it was that return to the Polo Grounds in August of 62 where he had his only home run. And that was big. And, one of the things it also set up was not only helping the Giants win that game because they would go and tie the Dodgers for the pennant and then win in a 3-game playoff series to determine, there were no divisions back then, so you had a 3-game playoff series with the Dodgers, and the Giants scored 4 in the 9th of the 3rd and decisive game at Dodger Stadium. Ed Bailey from Strawberry Plains was part of that team. And they went on and they defeated the Dodgers, come from behind victory, much as they had 11 years before when the two teams were in New York. Now they're in California. And so the Giants won their first pennant in San Francisco. They wouldn't win another one for 27 years. Which is a little surprising because you think of the Giants as, a good team and a good organization and all this. But yeah, it was they didn't win a World Series until 2010 in San Francisco. Anyway, Bowman, the 62 series was very, very close. Bowman did get a chance to play in the 7th game as a reserve. The Giants lost to the Yankees 1-0. They had runners at 2nd and 3rd, and with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th. And Willie McCovey lined out to Bobby Richardson at second base. Otherwise, the Giants would have won the game 2-1. And, if it was one step one way, another step the other, and they would have been world champions, and McCovey would have had a hit that would go down with Bill Mazeroski and Gene Larkin and who else? Luis Gonzalez and Moisés Alou and all those players. Bowman, in that year, Chuck Hiller hit the first National League Grand Slam in World Series competition, and Bowman was on the base paths. Like I say, he was instrumental in 2 things. As I said, first of all, as a basketball player, I do believe helping ETSU become, it was ETSC then, maybe eventually ETSU, but becoming an NCAA program from an NAIA program, because he was a real basketball star there. And it wasn't so much, filling in for the Giants as an infielder, so to speak. Like I said, but when he did come in, I do know he used to tell me 2 things he was always proud of. Dick Young, the great sports writer, and Bowman really hit it off. They were fast friends. And the other thing is that he always got a Christmas card from Willie Mays. That really, and he always kept them. He always loved the fact that he got a Christmas card from Willie Mays every year, Ernie Bowman. He played in the minors, like I said, obviously played in the minors, for, I believe it was 6 years after his last Major League appearance in 1963. And in 1966, he was playing for the Mets AAA team in Jacksonville, where he played with a young Tom Seaver and also a young Buddy Harrelson. I'm sure they were double play partners at some point, but it was Tom Seaver. And Seaver, who unfortunately is now, suffering from Alzheimer's, he remembered Ernie Bowman for giving him pitching advice that he thought made him into a great pitcher. And, there are certain East Tennessee ties to those 69 Amazons. I mean, if you want to make a roundabout tie this way, you can. But more than that, let's look at this. Bowman, who was 30 years old in 1966, was on the downside of his career, as I said. He was playing for the Mets AAA team. Next year he'd go for the Pirates. Played with Manny Sanguian. I saw the names, Bob Moose and all this. But he played on the 66 Jacksonville team with Tug McGraw, Tom Seaver, Bud Harrelson, Galen Cisco, and the immortal Choo Choo Coleman. Choo Choo Coleman is sort of wasn't a great player, or a great interview, to tell you the truth, but he was just, one of the... But Bowman, a veteran, sort of a Crash Davis, and here's Tom Seaver coming on his way up. And in Seaver's book, The Art of Pitching, co-written with Lee Lowenfish, he writes that Bowman approached him on the mound one day while they were teammates there in Jacksonville and says, "Kid, you got a good fastball, but to keep it, you got to throw it. Don't save it for Christmas." And that was as important as anything that Rube Walker, whose career began with the 1943 Irwin Cubs and would become the 69 Mets pitching coach, that meant as much to Seaver as anything, he later said. And Seaver said in his book, "Sure, batters will occasionally hit your hard one a long way, and sure, you need breaking off-speed stuff to break the hitter's timing, but the old number one, a fastball, remains the best way to establish your domination to the hitters." And Seaver, evidently, this was so, no one had told him this, or it all came forward that day on the mound that Ernie Bowman told him that. There's stories that I guess Sandy Koufax was really wild, and one day said, don't try to throw, so hard. And then he became the most dominant lefty of the 1960s, that sort of thing. A Hall of Famer. So there you go. Some more tidbits on Bowman, if I could. Gentleman who wrote online, I said, about this, and his name was Paul Shelburne Ferguson, who I looked online and evidently passed away last year. And he said, "Ernie Bowman was one of my coaches in the 50s when I played in the old Mason-Dixon League in Johnson City. I knew him by his other name of Farrell." And yes, that was commonly spoken of, Ernie Bowman's name, Farrell Bowman. "His younger brother Charlie played in our All-Star team that went all the way to... I can't speak. The All-Star team from Johnson City, lo, these many years ago, went to York, Pennsylvania, to the Final Four, beating Brooklyn, New York, irony of irony, but losing to York in the championship game." And he says, "One thing I remember is how Ernie Bowman really helped the kids on the team deal with the loss of our coach Ed Bulldog Laws shortly before we went into tournament play. I was only 10 and playing with these older guys, and the week was a long trip sponsored by Andy Semenuk, who lived in Elizabeth then. He was the Whiz Kids catcher, 1950 Phillies, if you don't know. They won the pennant. It's the only pennant the Phillies won between 1950 and 1980, and Semenuk was a catcher there. And Ferguson went on to say, "We did the Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia tour, caught a Boston Braves Phillies game at Shibe Park. Kurt Simmons for the Braves, Kurt Simmons was a Phillies pitcher. He saw Kurt Simmons pitch for the Phillies, and then to York for the heartbreak I'll always remember everyone was talking about the Braves rookie Sam Jethro being the future of the Braves, and we had no idea that it would actually be Hank Aaron. So, you know, kind of these memories that people have. I said, looked up the box score from when Ernie Bowman was able to hit his only home run, and it was, like I said, one of the Giants' first trips back to the Polo Grounds. Some of the names I mentioned, Willie Mays, Orlando Cepeda, Felipe Alou, Jose Pagan, Juan Martial, Harvey Keene for the Mets. You had Felix Mantilla, Frank Thomas, native Tennessean Marv Thornberry, the immortal Choo Choo Coleman, Jim Hickman, another Tennessean, Joe Christopher, Gene Woodling, and the Hall of Famer Richie Ashburn, along with Al Jackson. So, yes, that was one of the things right there. Anyway, you know, it's a real treasure. I know that, you know, you can look up the back of his baseball card, and maybe it just doesn't look that much. I think he had 190 as a major leaguer and an odd, you know, 3 back seasons as a utility infielder. I think one season he got 200 odd innings of play. That was it. Didn't play that much. Like I said, it 1 home run in his career was in the Polo Grounds when the Giants came back. But really, those 2 things, the advice he gave to Tom Seaver that meant so much to Seaver that he would include it in his book, and really also being a star basketball player back in the 50s at ETSC, East Tennessee State, that helped the Buccaneers eventually become an NCAA team. They started thinking about it, basically, with Bowman's exploits on the hardwood that led them to Kansas City, the NAIA tournament, back in 1954. So he was 84 years old. The last time I saw him, it was actually at Skeeter Swift's wake, I suppose you could say, at Brooks Gym. And he was in a wheelchair, and he was looking frail. It surprised me. I had done a story on Ernie Bowman, I guess it was back in 2002, when the Giants were recognizing the 40th anniversary of their 62 pennant team. And the funny thing also about that 62 team, the World Series coincided with when the then San Francisco, now Golden State Warriors played their first games. They just moved from Philly. And nobody was paying any attention to them because the Giants were in the World Series. So, yeah, it had Wilt Chamberlain on it and all this. And the feeling was that, you know, the old Chamberlain-Russell rivalry, I'm getting off base here, but that was, you know, Russell had gone to the University of San Francisco, and so, you know, they were still going to be partial to Russell and all that. I think they would have been partial to Chamberlain if they watched him play longer, just that it coincided with the World Series and all this. And Bowman, like I said, got into a couple of games, was 0 for 1 with that, but he did score as a pinch runner on Chuck Hiller's Grand Slam, the first Grand Slam in National League World Series history. So, regardless, there you go. There have not been that many major leaguers from Upper East Tennessee. There have been a few, enough to fill out a team. Although I think when I once put out an all East Tennessee team, or all Tri-Cities team, I had to go to Strawberry Plains and Ed Bailey for the catcher. But yeah, it was sad news that Bowman had passed away at 84, and he passed away on Sunday. So, we remember Ernie Bowman.
Princess Fiona